So you've got two approaches. Both work in different ways. People first shifts every single time somebody leaves, and systems first floats because there's no responsibility. What I needed is something that sat between the two, something that connected them. For years, I hired based on who was available, who I could afford, or who seemed like a good fit. And every time someone left, I was back to square one. I tried systems first, didn't work. I tried people first, it definitely didn't work. What I landed on was something different. And it's the reason why my business stopped depending on any one person, including me. It's so simple when you see it. So here's what I'm going to get into. First, why the way most founders hire creates a problem that gets worse over time. Then, why the obvious fix doesn't actually fix it. And finally, what I changed, why it works, and how I use it with my coaching clients today. When I started building my team, I hired for the person in front of me, their skills, their energy, their availability. And for a while, this worked fine because you're not thinking about structure. You're thinking about getting through the week and just delivering on the work that you have in front of you. But here's where it falls apart. Let's say you've got someone on your team called Jamie. Jamie's a great web developer. She's also really good at UX. And she's the one that naturally ends up running your team meetings. 3 things, 1 person. Jamie leaves. Now what? You go out and you hire Joe. Joe's solid at web dev, but he's not a UX guy, and he's definitely not running any meetings. So then you go and find Bilal. Bilal's great at UX, average at web, and won't go near the meetings. And all the while, your team is suffering because no one is running those meetings anymore. Maybe someone else steps in, maybe they don't. And you, the founder, ends up picking it all back up because it's easier than figuring out who else should own it. This is what people first does to a business. Every hire brings a completely different skill set, and every departure takes something you didn't know you'd lose. And the whole thing shifts every time someone walks out the door. You can't build something stable on that. And the instinct most founders have at this point is to go the other way entirely. So if people first doesn't work, surely the answer is to go systems first. Map all of your processes, document everything, run the business like a machine. I do understand the logic, and I'm not saying that systems don't matter, because they do. But here's the problem that I kept running into. When you go systems first, you end up with a beautiful set of documented processes and no clear line of accountability for any of them. Who owns this process? Who's responsible when it breaks down? Who's measuring whether it's working? Without something sitting underneath the systems, there's no answer to all of those questions. The system just floats. It doesn't connect to anyone, and a process that nobody owns is just a document that nobody reads. I've seen founders spend weeks building out their SOPs, so much effort and detail going into them, and then nothing changes. Because there was no structure to hold people accountable to it. So you've got two approaches. Both work in different ways. People first shifts every single time somebody leaves, and systems first floats because there's no responsibility. What I needed is something that sat between the two, something that connected them. Here's how I think about it. Your business model sits at the top. Under that, you've got your systems, the processes that make the business work. And under systems, you've got roles. And under roles, you've got people. Roles sit right in the middle, between the systems and the people. And that position is what makes them so useful. A role has responsibilities to the systems in your business, and the person sitting in that role is accountable to those responsibilities. So when Jamie leaves, you don't lose the 3 things you didn't know you needed. You know exactly what the role requires, and you hire for that. The business doesn't need to adapt. The role stays constant. The person changes. So how do you actually build this in practice? I start with how work moves through the business. How does work come in? How does it get won, delivered, and paid for? And what processes sit inside of each of those stages? Once I've got the processes, I can see what roles are needed to manage them. Not who, what. And when I map those roles out, I use 3 levels: leaders, managers, contributors. Contributors execute. Their accountability is to inputs and outputs. They're the ones that make everything happen. The tangible, measurable things. Conversations started, designs delivered, tasks completed. Managers are responsible for process. Their job's to make sure that the team is keeping pace with what's needed to hit the goals. If the goal is 10 new clients and you know that you need 100 qualified conversations to get there, the manager makes sure that you're hitting 100. They're not responsible for the outcome. The outcome belongs to leaders. Now I know what you're thinking, shouldn't managers be responsible for the results? Well, they are, but only indirectly through the process. If the process is followed and the outcome is still wrong, that's a leadership problem, not a management problem. Probably a video for another day. Leaders set the outcomes. They work backwards from the goals, they ask the bigger questions, and this is why, as your business grows, you, the founder, needs the time and space to think, because the impact of your decisions is so great. In an ideal world, your managers are handling everything below. What I found when I switched to this model was that everything became clearer. I could look at every role in my business and see exactly what it contributed, what good looked like in that seat, what traits and skills are required, and where the gaps were. And the last part matters most, because as a founder, the roles that you're still sitting in are the ones you need to hire out of. And when you can see the role clearly, separate from yourself, you can plan how to get out of that seat. That's what Role First gave me. Not just a cleaner org chart setup, not a bunch of unique people who one day I'd have to replace. A way to see my entire business consistently and objectively without emotion. And a vision of how I would get the out of every role. People First makes your business dependent on whoever happens to be in the room. And Systems First gives you a process with nobody responsible for it. A Role First approach bridges them. The role is responsible to the system and the person is accountable to the role. When every seat in your business has a clear job, a clear level, and a clear contribution to the outcomes, you stop having to guess. You stop feeling so out of control. And you stop being the only person who pretends to know how it all stitches together. It feeds your decisions, how to progress people, who reports to who is responsible for what. And isn't that all we're after? That's what this model gave me. If you want to try this, click the link in the description to check out my community. It's for agency founders and it's where I house all of my tools and training. And you can get access to my purpose-built app that you've seen on this video. Speak soon. Cheers.